Boker Tov, today's daf is daf Lamed Aleph. Hanoder Mishovsei Shabbos. He takes a neder that he won't have hanot from those who observe the Shabbos. And the question is, what does he mean by that? Does he mean befall? Those who are actually observing Shabbos? Could be that even a guy observes the Shabbos. No, Asr Bi Yisrael. He's prohibited in Klal Yisrael, and it matters not whether that particular Jew is Shomer Shabbos or not, but he means anyone who's obligated in the Shabbos, he also bekusim, and even a kusi, who are the descendants of those that came from the land of Kusa, and the Melech Ashur brought them up to live in Shomron after he was Megali. He sent Golus into the Asar Shvatim, and at the beginning of their settling in Eretz Yisrael, they did not fear God. They worshipped idols, and Hashem sent them arayos, real lions that were killing them. And from the fear of the lions, they decided to be misgayer. They were Mekayim the mitzvah Hashem, but they were still of their avodah zarah. And there's machlokas tanoim as to what their status is. Are they called geri arayos, and therefore their gerus is not valid, or are they geri emes and their gerus is valid? And the Rambam quotes our Mishnah La'aloch in Perek Tes Milchus Nedarim, and it would seem from our Mishnah that they do have the status of Yisraelim, and they're therefore obligated in the mitzvah of Shabbos. Again, they didn't necessarily observe the Shabbos. And other Rishonim argue against the Rambam because the Gemara tells us in Chulin that the Jews discovered that the Kusim were worshiping Dmus Yonah Bar Grizim. When they went on Aliyat, they didn't go to Yerushalayim, they went to Ar Grizim. That was their religion. And the Chachamim established that they're Goyim L'chol Divrayim. So why does the Rambam quote our Mishnah as is, when our Mishnah seems to reflect perhaps that status of Kusim as Yisraelim? Now we have the next case in the Mishnah. A person takes a neder from Ochle Shum Belele Shabbos. There's a takon of Ezra to eat shum on Friday night. And if you took a neder from those who eat shum, your intention is for those who eat shum as a fulfillment of the takon of Ezra. And that refers to all of Klal Yisrael. And therefore, however, here's the difference between Yisrael and a Kusi. If he took a neder me'ole Yerushalayim, also be Yisrael, mutar be Kusim. The Kusim did not go in Aliyat to Yerushalayim, they went to Har Grizim. The Gemara tries to clarify now the implication of the neder of Shofsei Shabbos. My Shofsei Shabbos, Shabbos, if it means before those who observe the Shabbos, my iri bekusim afil they kokom nami. There are goyim out there who do observe the Sabbath, so to speak. Ella, so if the Mishnah excludes goyim and only extends this neder as far as kusim, then we have to assume that what he meant is mitzumim ala Shabbos, those who are obligated in Shmira Shabbos as opposed to the goyim. The Gemara is not happy with that either. If the noder had in mind those who are mitzuvim in Shabbos, a Masechet, I even understand the Sefer, may only Yerushalayim also be sold with the Kusim. Even the Kusim are obligated in Aliyah Yerushalayim. So obviously from the Sefer, we interpret his words as being befall. Who's actually doing that? So we should say in the ratio, who's actually observing the Shabbos, and even a guy is observing the Shabbos. Why isn't he included in the neder? What he means is those who are obligated and fulfill their obligation. Therefore, the tarti bavi Kamaisa. In the first two dinim of the Mishnah, Yisrael v'kusim mitzvah v'yosim. The goyim are not mitzuvim in Shabbos, and even if they observe the Shabbos, Ovdei Kochavimu, the Avidi Osim Bein Mitzuvim. They are not obligated in the Shabbos, clearly, so they're excluded. But in the cases of Yisrael and Kusim, they not only are they obligated in Shabbos, but they observe the Shabbos, and that's true also for the Ochlei Shum. However, when it comes to Oli Yerushalayim, here's the distinction between Yisrael and Kusim. The Oli Yerushalayim Yisrael Mitzuvim ve'osim, and therefore they're included in the Neder, but Kusim Mitzuvim ve'enom osim. Although they're obligated in Aliyah Yerushalayim, they don't actually come to Yerushalayim. And this leads us to the next Mishnah here, the second Mishnah on Daf Lamed Aleph. Konam sheni nene lifnei Noach mutar Yisrael. Even though Yisraelim are also Bnei Noach, we're all descendants, all of mankind are descendants of Bnei Noach. Nevertheless, the Jewish people have a different name, and they are called Bnei Avram. They're not included in the category of Bnei Noach. The Asa B'Yovdei Kochavimu, because all the nations of the world are considered the children of Noach, the offspring of Noach. Here we add a comment in the name of the Bartanura. He asks about Bnei Yishmaelim. And he also asks about Bnei Esav. Are they included in Bnei Noach? We said that the Jewish people are called Bnei Avram, but in truth, the Yishmaelim and the Bnei Esav are also descendants of Avram. So we're going to see in the next Mishnah that we don't call the Yishmaelim or the Bnei Esav Bnei Avram. The Gemara asks the following question: the Yisrael min nafik mechlal Bnei Noach. Is it really true that the Jewish people are not considered the offspring and the descendants of Noach? They are in fact descendants of Noach. So why does the Mishnah matter them? They're not included in the net. The Gemara answers came into Ikadesh. Avram, once Avram was sanctified by Kadosh Baruch Hu as the chosen Avi Ha'uma, Iskiru al Shmei. The Jewish people have taken on a new name, that is the Bnei Avram. They're not considered Bnei Noach. And that's because Noach has a certain legacy which he gives to the descendants. And that's a legacy of Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, but Avram Avinu has a different legacy, and that's the entire corpus of the Torah. So we are called Bnei Noach, Bnei Avram, and not Bnei Noach. The Mishnah, this is the third Mishnah on the Amud. He takes a konam sheni nena lezera Avram. So now he uses a slightly different language, and that's Zera Avram. What does that mean? Does he include Esav now, the descendants of Esav? So the answer is that the pasuk tells us Ki v'Yitzchak yikar lecha zara, and we derive from this pasuk that not all the descendants of Yitzchak are considered descendants of Avram, and therefore Yishmael is excluded. And then when it says L'zarach Atenis Kol Haaretz Yisrael, that excludes Esav, because only Yaakov is considered L'zaracha to receive the gift of Eretz Yisrael. Now there's a discussion here based on a Rashi at the beginning of Sefer Dvarim about the possibility that Bnei Esav also received what's called Artzos Keni, Knizi, V'Kadmoni, and that is a part of Eretz Yisrael. So maybe one could argue that they are considered the Zera Avram in that sense. So that's a discussion about whether or not Bnei Esav have what's called a Din Yerusha in the Eretz Hakini Knizi Vakadmoni, or it was an outright gift. If it was Midin Yerusha, then they are Zer Avram. But apparently, we're going to say it's an outright gift. The Gemara says the following: Ika Yishmael. Yishmael is also Zer Avram, and the Gemara, as we said earlier, invokes the pasuk Yitzchak Yikar L'Chazar Ksiv Yitzchak below Bechol Yitzchak, meaning to exclude Yishmael. He's not called Zer Avram Vayika Esav, and Yitzchak, the extra bays below Kol Yitzchak, and that's coming to exclude the Bnei Esav. They're not considered Zaro Shal Yitzchak, and therefore they're not Zaro Shal Avram. Now we get to the third Mishnah, She'eni Nenem Yisrael. And now the question is, what about buying and selling from another Jew? He took a neder that he won't have, he took a neder konim that he won't have hano from Yisrael. And the Mishnah has a certain leniency. And what is that? Lokeach, if let's say it was the buyer who took this neder, biyoser, he could pay above the market price. Mocher, or if the Jew who took this konam is the seller, is bepachos. He's allowed to sell it to another Jew at a lower price. And in both these cases, we say that he's not being nene from the Jew. In the case of Lokech, he's not being nene from the mocher because he's paying above the price. In the case of the mocher, he's not being nene from the Lokech because he's undercharging him. And in my mind, the question was, and maybe Rabbi Rhodes, you have an answer to this question. Either you know the answer or you have Mefarshim. I couldn't find it here. What is considered Yoser and what's considered Pachos? Are we operating with what we call Shtus, 1/6 of the price? What is the discrepancy between what he's paying in the market price or what he's selling in the market price? In the footnote here, he quotes in the name of the Ran that when the Mishnah says he's allowed to buy biyoser or sell bepachos, that only applies when he prohibits on himself to have hanot from Yisrael atzmon. But if he takes a neder, a konon, that he won't benefit from the nechasim of a Jew, then he's asur to all nechsei Yisrael, even if he buys the object at twice its price. So, for example, the market price is 100, he buys it at 200. Nevertheless, he's not allowed to be nene from this sale because he took a konam on nechseim shel Yisrael. And the neder is chal on those chafatzim that on nechsei Yisrael. It's an isur hefta of konam. But exactly what's considered pachos or yoser, I don't know. I'm sure there's a discussion here in the Rishonim, but I don't find it right this minute. Again, it's possible to forget about shtus. Maybe it means that if he pays even a pruta above the price, he's not considered nen. I don't know. The Mishnah continues, and he says, "Konam she Yisrael nenimli." He takes a konam and imposing a neder on Bnei Yisrael that they won't get any benefit from him. And the Mishnah again applies the principle of lokech b'pachos u'mocher b'yoser. So let's say, for example, he is a socher and he does business with another Jew. Then it's important that that Jew will buy it at a lower price or sell it at a higher price. And in that case, the Jew is not getting benefit from it. But the ain't showman lo. I don't know exactly why the Mishnah had to add this, but the Mishnah is saying that no one's going to agree to this socher's prices. No one's going to take a hefsid moment to buy it from him at a more expensive price or to sell it for him at a cheaper price. So in the note here, he writes, Ein shum takana. In other words, the Mishnah just wants to tell you that Lamaisa, even though technically you could find a way of skirting the law, but nevertheless, it's not a takana. No one's going to feel obligated that because of your neder, they're going to buy it from you at a higher price or sell it to you at an underprice. Now, there's another girsa in our Mishnah that has e shomim lo, not ein shomim lo, but e shomim lo, meaning if they agree to suffer this loss on the benefit of this madir, then okay, that's fine. But if they don't agree, then he's left without any takon. Now the Mishnah continues. The man took a kodem she'eni nene lahem v'hein li. I won't have any anah from Yisrael, and Yisrael won't have any anah from me. His only option is to do business with goyim. He cannot do business, sell and buy from Yisrael at all. Now, as an introduction to the next piece in Shmuel, the Gemara of Shmuel, we speak about what's called charifa, mitzia, and drame alapin, rame alapin. So there are three categories of sales as we label them. One we label as zvina charifa, in which there's a tremendous demand in the market to purchase something, so that the mocher has the upper hand. And he doesn't benefit at all from a particular buyer because they're waiting online to buy his produce, his merchandise. Then you have a zvina metzia, which means that there is a demand for it, but nevertheless, it's not an overwhelming demand, and therefore when he sells something, he gets a benefit from it. He gets paid for his merchandise, and the daven that he receives is considered hana. And on the flip side, the buyer, the purchaser, he also gets benefit because he gets the chayfetz. However, if it'll be sold at a lower price, a slash price, then the mocher does not get any hana. Or if the koda, the buyer, is going to get it at a higher price than the market, then he's not considered nen. So that's called zvina mitzia. Then we have zvina derami al ape. No one wants to buy this. It's very difficult to pawn it off. And in such a case, even if the mocher would sell it at the normal price, the lokech is not considered that he got any benefit from the mocher, because it's very easy to find another mocher. If not this one, he'll find someone else. There's a greater supply than there is demand. And in that case, since there are very rare buyers, nobody's buying this, there's a very low demand, if the mocher is getting benefit when somebody comes along and buys it. However, nevertheless, if it's sold below its price, its market value, then although generally speaking we would say that that's not considered hana, but the koda is nene, even though again it's a low demand, it's rami alape, but he gets benefit from it. Amar Shmuel, halokech kli min ha'uman levakro. And now we get into the laws of a shoel. A shoel is considered almost like the owner of the object that he borrows, and he has to pay in all circumstances, any event that happens, even if the object that he borrowed was destroyed in an honest situation, let's say it just fell and broke, he still has to pay for it. It says Shmuel, when you buy a kli, and at this point, you take the kli into your house and you investigate the kli. You want to make sure that it's worth your while to buy the kli. So it's like on a trial basis. And the assumption is that if you're not happy with it, you find some sort of deficiency, then you'll give it back to the uman, to the artisan that produced it. Says Shmuel, nenas yodo, if there was an onus that happened and the kli broke, chayav, he's considered a shoel. And the reason for that is because kol hana shalo, he's getting all the benefit from the object, and that's called a shoel. Later on, we'll discuss the case of a socher who pays for the use of the object. Now, the Ran has an interesting question here. When we say in this Mishnah that a person took a konam, that he shouldn't benefit from his friend's possessions, like he can't buy from him and so forth and so on, the Ran asks the following question: what happens if he took the neder that he won't benefit from Ruvain? At the time, Ruvain didn't own this object. Subsequent to the neder, he purchased the object or he inherited it, and therefore it should come under the principle, which we'll have later in Masechet Nedarim, Eina neder chal al davar shelo haya ba'olam. And it's another expression of the principle of Ein Adam mocher davar shelo ba'olam. You can't sell something that doesn't exist. Here also, a neder has to be chal on a chefza, and that chefza has to be in the possession of Shimon. And Reuven took the neder. At that moment, Shimon did not have possession of the object. How could the neder be chal? And no one seems to stipulate and limit this application of this Mishnah. And the Ran comes up with a distinction, and he says that there's an iser that depends totally on the chayfetz, and it has to be a davar shebali olam. But our Mishnah is not talking about that case. It's talking about a case of Oser Hanoaso al Yisrael, or Hanos Yisrael Olam. So the Iser here is to have Hana from the Yisrael. And it's not dependent upon which Nechasim are there in his possession at the time of the Neder. As long as the Nechasim exists somewhere in the face of the world, he doesn't want to benefit from this fellow, and if this fellow acquires ownership over the kli, then he becomes enjoined from having any benefit. Now, the balance of our sugya today is about this statement of Shmuel. Alma, what do we see from Shmuel? What principle underlies Shmuel's ruling? That the lokeach is considered like a shoel, and he's chayav for onsim. Alma kasav hanas lokeachi. That in a mechira situation, where there's both a mocher and a kona, the kona is considered the one who's nena. And once again, the Ran asks the question: what do you mean the lokeach is nena? What about the mocher? I mean, he's gaining a profit. He's selling his merchandise. Why isn't he becoming a nen? Why is Shmuel putting all the emphasis here on the lokeach? As if to say he's nena and not the mocher. So the Ran explains that what we're saying here in Shmuel is that the lokeach is the one who's chayav ba'onsim, because he purchased the object, he's got to pay for the object, and therefore he's considered nena min hachefetz. This doesn't mean to say that the mocher is not nena. But in any event, the bottom line is that according to Shmuel, hanos lokeachi, and therefore the lokeach is a shoel, and he's chayav in onsim. So the Gemara asks from our Mishnah. Tanan, it says in our Mishnah, she'eni nena mi-Yisrael, mocher b'pachos. And the implication is that you're only allowed to purchase, you're only allowed to sell, the seller who's also in this neder, he's not allowed to have benefit from any Yisrael, he's allowed to sell it below its market value. And the implication of the diuk is aval shava b'shava lo. If he wants to sell it at the market value, then he's not allowed to do so. He's only allowed to sell it at a slashed price. So the Gemara asks, if according to Shmuel, in every sale, the buyer is considered the nene, is afilu shava b'shava. You should allow the mocher to sell it at the market value, because if he's selling it at the market value, then it's lokach who has the benefit and not the mocher. So if the mocher took upon himself a neder, he should be allowed, according to Shmuel, to sell it at its market value. And the Gemara answers, Masnisim b'zvina derami alapi. The case in our Mishnah is that third category where there are no buyers, meaning there are plenty of sellers, this supply is there, but the demand is close to zero. So therefore, if the mocher sells it at market value, he is nana, because it's very difficult to find a buyer when there's such a high supply and low demand. So the Mishnah therefore says, by implication at least, that if he'll sell it at its value, its market value, that's also, if he lowers the price below the market value, then it's not considered hana, because even though there are very few people buying it, but nevertheless, there are some people out there who are going to buy it if they're desperate, and they'll pay its market value. So if he sells it below the market value, then it's not considered hana. So the Gemara now raises the following objection. In Cain, if the Mishnah is dealing with a case of a zvini deravi alape, then a maresha. Let's take a look at the case of the ratio of Mudar Anon Yisrael, Lokeach B'Yoser. The Lokeach is allowed to buy, even though he's also beneded from Yisrael, at a higher price above the market value, and that's not considered that he's nene for the mocher. Now, if we're talking about a case where there's no demand, there's no koftzin, as we say, then if he would buy it at the market value, then he's not considered nene, because the mocher is the one who's desperate. And furthermore, Amos Sefer, the Sefer of the Mishnah says that she Yisrael nenimli, if he takes a neder that no other Jew should benefit from him, then lokeach b'pachos u'mocher b'yoser. He's only allowed to buy it at below the market value, or if he's the seller who took the konim, only if he just one second. Right, if the lokech is willing to pay a higher price. Now, if you're talking about zvini derami alapi afilu shava v'shava, if according to Shmuel, our Mishnah is interpreting it as a case where there's no demand, then why is he allowed to sell it only above its market price? Afilu shava v'shava, he should be allowed to sell it, because there are so few buyers out there that it's not considered that the Kona is getting any benefit from it. Right? The object is offered all over the place, and no one's buying it, so there's plenty of supply. So the Gemara answers, Seifa bizvini charifa. The Seifa is not talking about a case of Rami Alape, but rather zvina charifa, where everyone wants to get this object. It's hot on the market. There's a very high demand for the object. And in this case, with regard to such a chayfetz, if he'll sell it at its market value, he's not considered as if he's nana, because there are plenty of other buyers, if not this one. But the lokech is considered nana because there's such a high demand for the object, harbe koftzim olav, that he lucked out and he was able to buy it. It's very rare to get an opportunity to buy it. So you're allowed to sell it only if it's above the value, because then the lokech is not benefiting from it, even though it's a zivina charifa, but he's paying way above the market value. But to sell it at its market value is awesome. If the safe is talking about a case of zivina charifa, is lokech with pachos, the Mishnah says that he's allowed to buy it from a Jew only in a lower price, so that the Israel is not benefiting from him, is afilu shava v'shava. He should be allowed to purchase it even at its market value, because in the case of Zrina Charif, as we said before, only the Kona is nenin, because everyone's out there trying to buy it. And therefore, even if he buys it at its market value, he's not giving hana to anybody else. Ella says the Gemara, we got to change our tune. It's not going to work out neither in a zvina of Rami Alapi nor in a zvina Harifa. Nothing seems to work out, and therefore we're going to have to introduce what's called a zvina mitzia.